The day I lost my bakery was the day I stopped being the dutiful daughter-in-law. I remember standing in my kitchen, watching Eliza's perfectly manicured fingers slide the contract across my granite countertop, like she was dealing cards in a rigged game. "It's for the best, dear," she said, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. "The family business needs to be properly managed. I'm Tessa, and for the past 8 years, I've poured my heart and soul into Sweet Endings Bakery. Every morning at 4 a.m., I'd unlock those doors, fire up the ovens, and create magic with flour and sugar. My regulars became family, and my recipes won local awards, but none of that mattered to Eliza. "Mom, please," Neil said, shifting uncomfortably beside me. "Can't we discuss this another time?" "There's nothing to discuss," Eliza replied, tapping the paper with her blood-red nail. "The bakery needs proper oversight. Tessa clearly can't handle it alone." My hands trembled as I gripped the edge of the counter. "I've doubled our profits in the last 2 years. The business is thriving." "Oh, sweetie," Eliza's laugh felt like ice down my spine. "Those little cupcakes you make are charming, but this is about legacy. The Holland family name deserves better than a small-town bakery." I looked at Neil, silently pleading for support. He avoided my eyes, suddenly fascinated by the floor tiles I'd handpicked when we renovated. "Neil," I whispered, "please." He finally met my gaze, his face twisted with guilt. "Maybe Mum's right, Tess. The corporate oversight could help us expand." The betrayal hit like a physical blow. 8 years of marriage, and he was choosing his mother over me. Again. "Sign it, dear," Eliza pushed. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." My phone buzzed on the counter, a text from Danielle at the bakery. "Boss, the wedding consultation's here early. Should I start without you?" That message was my lifeline. "I have to go," I said, grabbing my keys. "There's a client waiting." "This needs to be handled today," Eliza called after me. "The lawyers are expecting the paperwork." I was already halfway out the door, but I heard Neil's defeated sigh. "I'll talk to her, Mum." At the bakery, I threw myself into work, decorating a 3-tier wedding cake while Danielle handled consultations. My hands stayed steady even as my world crumbled. Years of early mornings, missed holidays, and sacrificed weekends, all about to be stolen by my mother-in-law's ambition. "You okay, boss?" Danielle asked, closing up that evening. "You've been quiet all day." "I'm fine," I lied, wiping down the display case. "Just tired." Later that night, I sat at my desk reviewing the contract Eliza had left behind. The terms were brutal. I'd retain a small ownership percentage, but all control would transfer to Holland Enterprises. My recipes, my staff, my dream, all under Eliza's thumb. Neil found me there at midnight. "Babe, come to bed. We can figure this out tomorrow." "Figure what out?" I asked, not looking up. "How to surrender everything I've built." "Mom's just trying to help. Stop." I finally faced him. "Your mother has never tried to help me. She's trying to control me, like she controls you." His face hardened. "That's not fair." "Isn't it? When was the last time you made a decision without consulting her?" The silence was deafening. My phone lit up with an email notification, my monthly business newsletter. I opened it absently, needing a distraction from the tension, and there it was. The headline that changed everything. Local real estate market crashes, historic properties hit hardest. I clicked through, scanning until I found what I needed. Eliza's precious historic mansion, her pride and joy, had lost nearly half its value. The same house she'd bragged about at every family gathering, the one she'd leveraged to start Holland Enterprises. Neil was still talking, defending his mother, but I barely heard him. My mind was racing, pieces falling into place. I knew Eliza's type. All image, no substance. The crash would devastate her, but she'd never admit it. She'd keep up appearances until the last possible moment. I looked at my husband, still making excuses for his mother, and made my decision. If Eliza wanted to play games with my livelihood, I'd show her exactly how it felt to lose everything you love. You're right, I said, cutting off his rambling. I'll sign the papers tomorrow. Neil's relief was painful to watch. Really? You mean it? Of course. I smiled, thinking of the separate account I'd maintained since marriage, my safety net. After all, it's what's best for the family, right? Little did they know, I was about to redefine exactly what that meant. You did what? Sophia nearly choked on her coffee, her eyes wide with disbelief. We were sitting in her small law office, where I'd gone straight after signing over my bakery that morning. I signed it, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. But I have a plan. A plan that doesn't involve murdering your mother-in-law, I hope. She was only half joking. Better. I pulled out my phone and showed her the real estate listings I'd been researching. I'm going to buy her house. Sophia stared at me for a long moment. Okay, you need to back up and explain everything. I told her about discovering Eliza's financial vulnerability, about the market crash, and my suspicions that she was using my bakery to shore up her failing empire. That's why she was so aggressive about getting control, I explained. She needs the bakery's steady income to keep up appearances. Sophia leaned back in her chair, processing. And you're sure about this? Her son George let it slip last week that she's been trying to refinance. He thought I knew already. Being family and all. I couldn't help the bitter laugh. Eliza's been hiding it well, but she's desperate. Even so, buying her house, that's exactly what she deserves. I finished my now cold coffee. Can you help me? Sophia's expression shifted from concern to determination. Actually, I know someone who might be perfect for this. Let me call Meki. 20 minutes later, a tall man in a sharp suit walked in. Sophia said it's urgent. He extended his hand. I'm Meki. Tessa, and yes, I need to buy a house without the owner knowing it's me. His eyebrows shot up, but he sat down without comment. As I explained the situation, he took careful notes. It's doable, he said finally. We can set up an LLC to make the purchase. My brother Jake is a real estate agent. He can handle the actual transaction. Eliza won't know you're involved until after the sale is complete. Perfect. I felt the first real smile in days spread across my face. How soon can we start? I can have the paperwork ready tomorrow, but Tessa, he paused, looking serious. This is going to get messy. Are you prepared for that? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from Neil. Mum wants us over for dinner Sunday. Says she has big plans for the bakery. I'm more than prepared, I said, showing them the message. I'm counting on it. Later that afternoon, I was back at the bakery, now technically working for Holland Enterprises. Danielle was decorating cookies, shooting me worried glances. You seem different today, she said finally. Good different, but scary different. I was about to respond when George walked in. Neil's younger brother had always been the family rebel, keeping his distance from Eliza's controlling nature. Hey, sis. He grabbed a cookie from the display case. Heard about the big change. You okay? Just peachy, I replied, watching him carefully. How's your mom? Still trying to sell that big old house? God, I wish, he snorted. She's too proud to admit she can't afford it anymore. The property taxes alone are killing her, but heaven forbid she downsize. That must be stressful for her. Yeah, well, he shrugged. Maybe if she focused more on fixing her own problems instead of controlling everyone else's lives. After he left, Danielle turned to me. Did you see that glint in your eye? What are you planning? Let's just say changes are coming. I started gathering my things. Can you handle closing tonight? I have some appointments to make. That evening, I met with Miki and his brother Jake at their office. Jake had already pulled the property records and recent market analyses. The timing's perfect, he said, spreading out documents. The market crash has scared off most buyers, and the house has been quietly listed for months. We can probably get it for well below asking price. And you're sure this will work? I asked, looking at the complex legal documents Maki had prepared. The LLC structure is solid, Maki assured me. Eliza won't know you're involved until you choose to reveal it. I signed where indicated, then handed over the cashier's check I'd brought, my safety net, about to become my revenge. One more thing, Jake said as I stood to leave. Once we make the offer, things will move fast. Are you ready for what comes next? I thought about my bakery, about Neil's weakness, about years of Eliza's subtle manipulation and not so subtle control. I've spent 8 years being the perfect daughter-in-law, I said. I'm ready to be something else entirely. Walking to my car, I got another text from Neil. Mum's already talking about rebranding the bakery. Please try to be supportive on Sunday. I typed back a simple, "Of course, honey," and smiled. Sunday dinner was going to be interesting indeed. The offer's been accepted, Jake announced over speakerphone. I gripped my cell phone tighter, ducking into the bakery's walk-in freezer for privacy. Eliza didn't even counter. She's desperate to sell. How long until closing? 2 weeks, max. Makey's expediting everything. I ended the call as Danielle poked her head in. Boss, the corporate guy is here again. Says he needs to discuss the rebranding strategy. I stepped out to find a sleek-suited man waiting, laptop in hand. Eliza's minion, sent to destroy everything that made my bakery special. Mrs. Holland asked me to review these changes with you, he said, pulling up a presentation. We're thinking Holland's Fine Pastries for the new name. I bit my tongue, nodding along as he detailed their plans to replace my handwritten menu boards with digital displays and my vintage furniture with modern chrome and glass. And of course, he continued, we'll need to standardize the recipes. No more daily specials or custom orders. Everything needs to be consistent for potential franchising. My phone buzzed, a text from Sophia. Papers are ready. Need your signature ASAP. I have an appointment, I said, standing abruptly. We'll have to finish this later. But Mrs. Holland specifically requested. I said later. I grabbed my purse and headed for the door, pausing only to whisper to Danielle, don't let him change anything while I'm gone. At Makey's office, I found both brothers waiting with a stack of documents. Once you sign these, Makey explained, the house will belong to your LLC. Eliza won't know until the closing documents are filed. And that's legal. Completely. Buyers have no obligation to reveal their identity until closing. By then, it'll be too late for her to back out. I signed everywhere they indicated, my hand steady despite my racing heart. There's something else, Jake said, looking uncomfortable. Eliza called this morning. She wants to accelerate the closing, says she has another property she's interested in. The bakery's money, I realized. She's planning to use it to buy something else before anyone realizes she's in trouble. Back at the bakery, I found Neil waiting. His face was tight with tension. Mum's wondering why you missed the meeting with the corporate team, he said, following me into my office. She says you're being difficult. Difficult? I laughed harshly. Like how she's being difficult about completely destroying everything I've built. She's trying to help. Stop saying that. I slammed my hand on the desk. When are you going to see what she's really doing? And what exactly is she doing, Tessa? His voice rose to match mine. Because from where I'm standing, you're the one acting strange. Secret phone calls, disappearing in the middle of the day. You want to talk about strange? I pulled out the corporate redesign plans. Your mother wants to erase every trace of me from this place. 8 years of my life, gone because she says so, and you're letting her do it. Neil's face softened. It's just business, babe. Change isn't always bad. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with an email from Jake. Urgent. Eliza's realtor requesting closing date move up to next week. I have to go, I said, grabbing my keys. Again? Neil's expression hardened. What's going on, Tessa? Nothing you need to worry about. I paused at the door. Just like I apparently don't need to worry about my bakery anymore. I spent the rest of the afternoon with Miki and Jake, rushing through paperwork and arranging finances. By evening, everything was set for closing in 5 days. Returning to the bakery after hours, I found Danielle still there, removing the corporate guy's sample displays. He tried to change everything while you were gone, she said. I told him all changes needed your approval first. Thank you. I helped her take down the last digital menu board. Things are going to get complicated soon. You might want to start looking for another job. No way. She crossed her arms. I'm staying right here. Someone needs to help you fight the evil empire. My phone lit up with a text from Neil. Mom wants us over for dinner tomorrow. Says we need to discuss your attitude about the changes. Speaking of the evil empire, I showed Danielle the message. Looks like tomorrow's the dress rehearsal for Sunday's main event. Are you scared? I thought about the house-closing documents hidden in my bag, about Eliza's smug certainty that she'd won, about Neil's blind loyalty to his mother. No, I replied, surprising myself with how true it was. I'm ready. Danielle squeezed my arm. Give her hell, boss. I smiled, thinking of the storm about to break. Oh, I plan to. I really plan to. Congratulations, Mekhi said, sliding the final paperwork across his desk. You're officially a homeowner. Again. I stared at the documents, my hands trembling slightly as I traced Eliza's signature. She'd signed them this morning, still unaware of who really bought her beloved mansion. When will she find out? The deed records tomorrow. He leaned back in his chair. By law, she has 3 days to vacate once she receives the official notice. My phone buzzed, Neil calling for the 3rd time today. I sent it to voicemail. He's been trying to reach me since last night's dinner, I explained. It didn't go well. The previous evening had been a masterclass in passive-aggressive warfare. Eliza had spent the entire meal detailing her plans for my bakery, while I sat there, smiling and nodding, knowing her world was about to implode. The contractors start Monday, she'd announced over dessert. We'll need to close for 2 weeks for renovations. 2 weeks, I'd asked, keeping my voice neutral. What about our standing orders? Oh dear, she'd patted my hand condescendingly. Those small-time customers won't matter once we're properly positioned in the market. Those small-time customers paid for everything in that bakery, I'd snapped, finally losing my cool. Every tile, every oven, every recipe. Tessa, Neil had cut in sharply. Mom knows what she's doing. The rest of the evening had devolved from there. Now, sitting in Mekhi's office, I checked my messages. 3 from Neil, 1 from George. What did you say to Mum? She's been making calls all morning about some emergency meeting with her financial advisor. Looks like she's starting to feel the pressure, Mekhi observed. Are you sure you want to wait until Sunday to tell them? Sunday dinner is her thing, I said. Her power play. It's fitting that's where it ends. Back at the bakery, I found Neil waiting in my office. Where have you been? He demanded. Mom's been trying to reach you about the renovation schedule. I had appointments. More secret meetings. He ran his hands through his hair in frustration. What's happening to you, Tess? Ever since you signed over the bakery. You mean ever since you and your mother forced me to sign over my life's work? That's not fair. Mum is investing a lot of money. Is she? I interrupted, thinking of her desperate rush to close the house sale. Are you sure about that? He faltered slightly. What do you mean? Before I could respond, Danielle knocked on the door. Sorry to interrupt, but Mrs. Holland is here, again. Eliza swept in, looking more frazzled than I'd ever seen her. Tessa dear, we need to push up the renovation timeline. The contractors can start tomorrow. Tomorrow? Neil looked confused. Mum, you said Monday. Plans change, she snapped, then quickly composed herself. It's better for everyone this way. Everyone meaning you? I asked sweetly. Her eyes narrowed. I don't like your tone. And I don't like what you're doing to my bakery, but here we are. It's not your bakery anymore, she reminded me, voice sharp. You signed it over, remember? Oh, I remember. I smiled, thinking of the house deed sitting in my bag. Speaking of signatures, how's the house sale going? She paled slightly. That's none of your concern. Mum? Neil looked between us. What house sale? Nothing, darling. She grabbed her purse. Just some real estate matters. Now, about tomorrow. No, I said firmly. Excuse me. No renovations tomorrow. No renovations next week. Nothing changes until after Sunday dinner. You don't have the authority. Sunday, I repeated. Consider it my last request as the former owner. She stared at me for a long moment, calculation visible behind her eyes. Finally, she nodded stiffly. Fine. Sunday. But after that, things will change around here. She turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and dear, do try to bring something other than those common chocolate chip cookies this time. We're attempting to elevate standards, after all. After she left, Neil turned to me. What was that about the house? You should ask your mother, I suggested, though I doubt she'll tell you the truth. Tessa, I have work to do, I cut him off. Apparently, I only have a few days left to make my common cookies. That evening, as I was closing up, my phone lit up with a text from Jake. Deed recorded. Notice will be delivered tomorrow morning. I looked around my bakery, my beautiful, warm, successful bakery that Eliza was so desperate to change, and felt a fierce satisfaction. Game on, Eliza, I whispered to the empty room. Game on. The doorbell chimed as George burst into the bakery, his face flushed with urgency. Have you seen Mum today? I looked up from the wedding cake I was decorating. No, why? She's losing it, like, completely losing it. He slumped onto a stool at the counter. Some courier delivered papers this morning, and she's been locked in her study making phone calls ever since. How terrible, I said, carefully piping another rose. Any idea what the papers were about? No, but she keeps yelling about lawyers and impossible deadlines. He grabbed a muffin from the display case. Dad says she's been trying to reach her financial advisor all day. Danielle caught my eye from across the room, trying to hide her smile. She was the only employee I'd trusted with the full story. I'm sure she'll sort it out, I said, adding the final touches to the cake. Your mother always does. Yeah, but... George lowered his voice. I think it's about the house. And I heard her mention the bakery too. Something about needing to accelerate the timeline. My phone buzzed, a text from Makey. Eliza's lawyer called. They're trying to delay the eviction notice. Too late, I typed back. The weird thing is, George continued, oblivious to my texting, she keeps saying she needs to talk to you before Sunday dinner. Something about the renovation schedule? Does she now? I wiped my hands on my apron. Well, she knows where to find me. Right on cue, the bell chimed again. Eliza strode in, looking significantly less polished than usual. Her hair was slightly disheveled, and her designer blouse had a coffee stain. George, she snapped, what are you doing here? Just grabbing a snack, Mum. He held up his muffin. Everything okay? Fine. I need to speak with Tessa, alone. George glanced between us, then wisely retreated to a corner table with Danielle. We need to move up the renovations, Eliza said without preamble, starting tomorrow. We already discussed this, I replied, continuing to work on the cake. Nothing changes until after Sunday. This isn't a request, Tessa. The contractors are already scheduled. Then unschedule them. Her perfectly manicured hands gripped the counter. Listen to me very carefully. I own this bakery now. You will do as I say, or what? I met her gaze steadily. You'll fire me. Go ahead, but good luck running this place without my recipes, my suppliers, and my loyal customers. Mom, George called from his table. Maybe you should... Stay out of this, she snapped, then turned back to me. I've been patient with you, Tessa, but my patience has limits. Funny, I said. I was just thinking the same thing. Her phone rang, probably another lawyer, and she grabbed it frantically. This isn't over, she hissed before hurrying out. George approached the counter once she left. I've never seen her like this. People show their true colors when they're desperate, I said, starting to clean up my workspace. Desperate? He frowned. Mom's never desperate. She's always in control. Is she? I raised an eyebrow. Maybe you should ask her about the house sale. Later that evening, Neil came by as I was closing up. He looked troubled. George said you and Mom had another fight. Not a fight, I corrected, counting the register. Just a disagreement about timing. He also said something about the house. He leaned against the counter. What's going on, Tess? Mom's acting strange, you're being secretive. Have you ever wondered, I asked, closing the register drawer, why your mother suddenly needed my bakery so badly? She wants to help. No. I cut him off. She needs it. There's a difference. What are you talking about? Ask her about the house sale, Neil. Ask her why she's so desperate to start renovations before Sunday. His phone buzzed. Eliza, of course. He answered immediately. Yes, Mom. No, I'm with Tessa. What? But you said, okay, I'll be right there. Let me guess, I said as he hung up. Emergency family meeting. She says it's important. He hesitated. Come with me. No thanks. I grabbed my purse. I'm saving my family time for Sunday dinner. Tessa, please. You should go, I said, gesturing to his still buzzing phone. Your mother's waiting. After he left, I checked my own messages. One from Meki. Everything's set for Sunday. No legal way for her to stop it. Another from Sophia. Are you sure you want to do it this way? It's not too late to change plans. I thought about Eliza's desperate visit today, about Neil's blind loyalty, about years of manipulation and control. I'm sure, I replied to both. Sunday dinner is happening exactly as planned. I looked around my bakery one last time before leaving. By this time next week, everything would be different. I just hoped I was ready for the fallout. Mrs. Holland demands an immediate meeting, the lawyer announced, striding into my bakery Saturday morning. She's prepared to offer you a generous severance package. I continued boxing up cupcakes for a birthday party. Is she now? She's willing to buy out your remaining shares, he continued, placing a document folder on the counter. Full market value plus 3 months' salary. Tell me, I said, tying a perfect bow on the box. Does Eliza know about the eviction notice yet? The lawyer's practiced poker face slipped for just a moment. I'm not at liberty to discuss other matters. No? I smiled. Then I'm not at liberty to discuss this one. See you at dinner tomorrow. He left the folder anyway, but I didn't bother opening it. Instead, I texted Meki. Eliza's trying to buy me out before tomorrow. Smart move on her part, he replied. Too bad it's too late. The bell chimed again. This time it was George, looking even more frazzled than yesterday. Mum's selling the house, he blurted out. She just told us. Says it's a strategic downsizing or something. Really? I raised an eyebrow. Did she mention who bought it? Some investment company. But that's not the weird part. He leaned in close. She's insisting we all come to dinner tomorrow. Like mandatory attendance. Dad, me, Neil, everyone. Can't miss the weekly tradition, I said, starting another batch of cupcakes. Tessa! He grabbed my arm. What's really going on? First the bakery, now the house. Something's not right. Before I could answer, Neil walked in. He looked like he hadn't slept. We need to talk, he said. George backed away. Yeah, see you both tomorrow. After he left, Neil slumped onto a stool. Why didn't you tell me about Mom's offer? You mean the one her lawyer brought 20 minutes ago? She's trying to make this right, Tess. I slammed down my piping bag. Make it right? She forced me to sign over my business, is trying to destroy everything I've built, and now thinks she can buy my silence with 3 months' salary. Silence about what? He ran his hands through his hair. Everyone's acting crazy. Mom's having secret meetings. You're being cryptic about the house sale. Have you asked her about that? I interrupted. About why she's really selling? She says it's just business, and you believe her, like you believed her about the bakery. His phone buzzed. Eliza again, of course. He ignored it this time. What am I supposed to believe, Tessa? My wife's keeping secrets. My mother's falling apart. Your mother, I cut in, is reaping what she sowed. And tomorrow at dinner, everyone's going to see exactly who she really is. What's that supposed to mean? Another buzz, this time my phone. Jake had sent a photo of the final eviction notice, ready for tomorrow. You should go, I said, turning back to my cupcakes. Your mother probably needs you. Tessa, please. Tomorrow, Neil. All your questions will be answered tomorrow. After he left, Danielle emerged from the back room. That was intense. Just wait until tomorrow. I checked my phone again. A message from Sophia asking if I needed moral support at dinner. Yes, I typed back. But not at dinner. After. The rest of the day passed in a blur of baking and preparations. I stayed late, making sure everything was perfect for Sunday's orders. As I was closing up, George texted again. Mum's called every lawyer in town. What did you do? Nothing she didn't deserve, I replied. That night, I lay awake in bed, Neil sleeping restlessly beside me. My phone lit up with a final message from Makey. Everything's set for tomorrow. Last chance to back out. I thought about the first time I'd met Eliza, how she'd looked at my small bakery with barely concealed disdain, how she'd spent years trying to control every aspect of my life, using Neil as her puppet, how she'd finally shown her true colors when she saw an opportunity to take what I'd built. No backing out, I replied. See you tomorrow. Sunday morning dawned bright and clear. I got up early, baking one last batch of my common chocolate chip cookies, the ones Eliza always complained about. Neil watched me from the doorway. Mum says we need to be there by 5, he said quietly. I know. I placed the cookies carefully in a box. Wouldn't want to be late for the last Holland family dinner. What does that mean? I closed the box, tied it with a perfect bow, and grabbed my purse, making sure the house documents were inside. It means, I said, heading for the door, that after tonight nothing will ever be the same. The look of confusion and worry on his face almost made me feel sorry for what was about to happen. Almost. Eliza's dining room was suffocating with tension. George kept checking his phone under the table. Neil wouldn't meet anyone's eyes, and Eliza's hands shook slightly as she served the roast beef. Lovely dinner, Mom, George said, breaking the silence. Though I'm surprised you cooked, with everything going on. Everything's fine, she snapped, then forced a smile. Tessa, dear, I assume you've had time to review the offer my lawyer brought. Oh, yes. I took a bite of potato. Very generous. Almost as generous as the offer you got on the house. Her fork clattered against her plate. Neil's father looked up, confused. The house sale? I thought that wasn't public yet. It's not, Eliza said quickly. Just a private transaction, nothing to discuss. Really? I pulled out my phone, checking the time. Because I heard the new owners taking possession very soon. The doorbell rang, making Eliza jump. She glanced at the clock. 6 p.m. exactly. I'll get it, she said, standing quickly. No need. I smiled. They're here for me. The doorbell rang again, more insistent this time. George went to answer it, returning with a courier holding official-looking documents. Delivery for Mrs. Holland, he announced. Which one? I asked sweetly. Eliza snatched the envelope, her face draining of color as she read. This can't be right. What is it, Mom? Neil asked. It's... She looked at me, realization dawning. You're the buyer. Buyer? George grabbed the papers. Holy shit, Tessa bought the house? That's impossible, Eliza sputtered. The purchase was made by Summit Valley LLC. My LLC, I confirmed, taking another bite of potato. Formed specifically for this purpose. The deed was recorded Friday. Neil stood up so fast his chair fell backward. What's going on? Your wife, Eliza spat, has just revealed herself as the anonymous buyer of our family home. This is manipulation, I laughed out loud. Manipulation? That's rich coming from you. Tell them, Eliza. Tell them why you really needed my bakery. I don't know what you're talking about. The refinancing fell through, didn't it? I continued. The market crashed, the house lost value, and suddenly you needed a new source of income. Enter my profitable bakery. Mom? George was reading the papers. This is an eviction notice. 3 days to vacate. It's not legal, Eliza declared. I'll fight this. With what money? I stood up, pulling more documents from my purse. Your accounts are overdrawn. Your credit's maxed out, and now you've lost both the house and your chance to steal my bakery's profits. Neil grabbed the papers, scanning them frantically. These bank statements. Mom, is this true? Of course not. She's trying to destroy our family. No, I cut in. I'm stopping you from destroying anything else. The bakery deal is void, signed under duress, and with fraudulent intentions. My lawyer's already filed the paperwork. You can't prove. Actually, I can. George told me about the refinancing weeks ago. That's what started all this, isn't it? You needed my bakery's assets to secure a new loan. The room fell silent. Neil looked between his mother and me, his world visibly crumbling. 3 days, I said, standing up. That's how long you have to move out. Don't worry about the bakery. I'll handle the contractors you scheduled. You vindictive little... Careful, I warned. The new owner of this house might decide to shorten that timeline. George let out a low whistle. Damn, sis. Remind me never to cross you. Tessa, Neil finally spoke, his voice hollow. Why didn't you tell me? Would you have believed me? I asked. Over her? He had no answer. This isn't over, Eliza threatened, but her voice trembled. Actually, it is. I picked up my purse. Oh, and those cookies you always complained about. They won first place at the state fair last month. Just thought you should know. I headed for the door, pausing in the doorway. George, Neil, you might want to help your mother pack. 3 days isn't very long to move out of a house this size. You can't just leave, Eliza called after me. Neil, tell her. Tell her what, Mom? Neil's voice was tired. That you lied, that you tried to steal her business to cover your debts. I left them there, stepping out into the cool evening air. My phone buzzed, Sophia asking how it went. Done, I typed. Meet me at the bakery. I could use a friend and some fresh cookies. As I drove away, I caught a last glimpse of the house in my rearview mirror. Eliza's perfect mansion, now mine. The ultimate karma for 8 years of manipulation and control. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. My marriage, the bakery's future, the fallout from tonight. But for now, I had won, and that was enough. She's really gone, George said, watching the moving truck pull away from his childhood home. I still can't believe you pulled this off. I handed him a coffee from my bakery. Neither can I sometimes. We sat on the front steps, the morning sun warming the brick beneath us. The last 3 days had been chaos, Eliza's rage, Neil's silence, lawyers' calls. But now, finally, it was done. Neil's looking for you, George mentioned, sipping his coffee. He's been at the bakery every morning this week. I know. Danielle's been turning him away. He's different now. Since Sunday, it's like he's waking up from a long sleep. My phone buzzed, Sophia sending me property listings. I'd decided to sell the mansion, but not before using it for something special. Did you see the flyer? I asked George. He pulled it from his pocket, grinning. Community cooking classes for underprivileged kids. In Mum's precious gourmet kitchen. That's just evil. The first class starts next week. Your mother's marble countertops are about to meet 20 enthusiastic third graders learning to make pizza. Speaking of the bakery, George hesitated. Mum's been telling people you forced her out of a legitimate business deal. Let her talk. The truth has a way of coming out. Right on cue, my phone lit up with a news alert. Local businesswoman exposes financial fraud scheme. Mecky's contacts at the paper had come through. Well, George stood up, brushing off his jeans. I should go. Mum's expecting me to help her settle into her new apartment. How's she handling downsizing? Let's just say her new neighbors aren't impressed by her stories about her former mansion. After he left, I walked through the house one last time. The room still echoed with Sunday's confrontation, with Neil's final words to his mother. How could you do this to her? To us? The front door opened behind me. I knew who it was without turning around. You haven't been home in 3 days, Neil said quietly. I needed time to think. And now, I turned to face him. He looked different, older somehow, but also lighter, like he'd set down a heavy burden. "Now I need to know," I said. "If she hadn't gotten caught, if she'd succeeded in taking the bakery, would you have ever stood up to her?" "I don't know," he admitted. "That's what scares me the most. I've spent my whole life making excuses for her, believing her lies. And now? Now I want to make things right. With you, with the bakery, with everything." He stepped closer. "But first, I need to know something too. Did you do all this just for revenge?" "No." I walked to the window, looking out at the garden where Eliza had hosted countless perfect family dinners. "I did it because someone had to stop her. Because sometimes the only way to deal with a bully is to take away their power." "The cooking classes," he said. "That was a nice touch. The house will be sold eventually, but first it's going to help some people. Real people, not just Eliza's social climbers." "And us?" His voice cracked slightly. "Is there still an us?" I turned back to him. "That depends. Who are you without her influence? Because that's the man I need to get to know. I'd like to find out too." He pulled something from his pocket, a key. "I had the bakery locks changed back. It's yours again, legally and completely. Mom signed the reversal papers this morning." The weight of the key felt right in my hand, like coming home. "I'm not moving back yet," I told him. "I need time. We need time." "I know, but maybe we could start with coffee, at the bakery." My phone buzzed again, Danielle sending a photo of the grand reopening banner she'd hung in the window. "Coffee sounds good," I said. "But first, there's something I need to do." I pulled out my own set of keys and handed them to Neil. "The house is yours if you want it. Not to live in, but to help run the community programs. Something good should come from all this." He stared at the keys, then at me. "You're giving it up, just like that. I never wanted the house. I just needed to show her she couldn't take what was mine." I smiled. "Besides, I already have a home. It's got ovens instead of marble countertops, and it smells like cookies instead of expensive perfume." Neil pocketed the keys, understanding in his eyes. "Coffee tomorrow, then." "Around 9. "Make it 10, I said. "The morning rush keeps me busy. You remember all those small-time customers your mother was so worried about?" He laughed. A real laugh, maybe his first in years. 10 it is." I took one last look around Eliza's perfect house, then walked out without looking back. Tomorrow would bring fresh bread, hot coffee, and maybe, just maybe, a chance to build something new from the ashes of what had burned. But first, I had some cookies to bake.
The notification from my banking app made my heart stop. Warning: account balance below emergency threshold. I blinked hard, hoping I'd misread it. But the numbers didn't lie. My carefully maintained emergency fund of $42,000 had dwindled to just over $3,000. My name is Michelle, and until that moment, I thought I had my life perfectly organized. At 32, I'd spent years building that safety net, living frugally and saving every extra dollar I could. Now, staring at my phone screen in my apartment's kitchen, my hands started to shake. I immediately called the bank. "There must be some mistake," I said, pacing back and forth. "I haven't made any large withdrawals." The representative's voice was sympathetic, but firm. "I'm showing several transfers over the past 3 months, ma'am, all authorized using your credentials." "What? That's impossible." I grabbed my laptop and logged into my account. The transaction history showed multiple transfers to an account I didn't recognize. "Can you tell me who owns the receiving account?" "The account belongs to Elizabeth Diaz." My Aunt Elizabeth. My coffee mug slipped from my hand, shattering on the kitchen floor. "I never authorized these transfers. Never." I called my parents immediately, my voice shaking. "Mom, what's going on with my emergency fund? Why is Aunt Elizabeth receiving my money?" The long pause that followed told me everything. "Honey," my mother started, her voice small, "we needed to help Regina with her college tuition. She got into that prestigious program she wanted." "You what?" I practically screamed. "How did you even get access to my account? Remember when you were sick last year? You gave me your banking passwords to help manage your bills." The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. I'd been bedridden with pneumonia for weeks, and my mother had helped manage my finances temporarily. I'd trusted her completely. That money was for emergencies, I said, my voice breaking. My emergencies. Family helps family, Michelle. My father's voice suddenly joined the call. Regina needed the money more than you did. You're established. You have a good job. Stop, I cut him off. You had no right. This is theft. Don't be dramatic, my mother said. Regina's future is at stake. She's family. I ended the call and immediately dialed my best friend, Jade. She answered on the second ring. They stole my emergency fund, I said, my voice hollow. My own family stole over $38,000 from me to pay for Regina's college. They did what? Jade's outrage was exactly what I needed. Michelle, that's not just morally wrong, it's illegal. You need to call a lawyer. But they're family, I whispered, echoing my mother's words even as they made me sick. Family doesn't steal from family, Jade said firmly. Listen to me. If you don't take action now, they'll never respect your boundaries. They'll keep taking and taking. My phone buzzed with a text from Regina. Please understand, cousin. This opportunity means everything to me. Mom and Aunt said you'd want to help. I threw my phone onto the couch. They didn't even ask me, Jade. They just took it. Like I didn't matter. Like all my hard work meant nothing. Then make them understand it matters, Jade said. I have a number for a good family lawyer. His name is Nigel. Want me to set up a meeting? I looked around my apartment, at the life I'd built, the independence I'd fought for. The broken coffee mug on the floor seemed to mirror my shattered trust. Yes, I said finally, my voice stronger. Set it up. I'm done being the family ATM. Another text buzzed through, this time from my brother Kelvin. Mom and Dad told me what happened. They're saying you're overreacting. What are you going to do? I typed back, what I have to do. Jade was still on the line. I'll pick you up tomorrow at 9 a.m. We'll go see Nigel together. After hanging up, I sat in my quiet apartment, surrounded by the pieces of my broken mug and broken trust. My family had always preached about loyalty, about helping each other. But as I looked at my bank balance again, I realized their version of family loyalty was a one-way street. My phone kept buzzing with messages from various family members, all trying to justify the theft, all trying to make me feel guilty for being upset. I turned it off. Tomorrow, I would see a lawyer. Tomorrow, I would start fighting back. But tonight, I allowed myself to cry for the family I thought I had, and for the harsh reality of who they really were. Jade's car pulled into the law office parking lot exactly at 8:55 a.m. I hadn't slept much, but the morning sunlight and 3 cups of coffee had given me enough energy to face what was coming. You look like hell, Jade said, giving my hand a squeeze as we walked into the building. Thanks. That's exactly what every girl wants to hear before meeting her lawyer. The elevator ride to the 6th floor was silent. My phone had blown up overnight with messages from family members, each one more guilt-inducing than the last. I'd only responded to Kelvin, who seemed genuinely concerned rather than accusatory. Nigel's office was smaller than I expected, but warm and welcoming. The lawyer himself was an older man with kind eyes that hardened when I explained my situation. Let me get this straight, he said, leaning forward in his chair. Your mother used passwords you provided during an illness to transfer money from your personal emergency fund to your aunt's account without your knowledge or consent. Yes, I said, pulling out my phone. I have screenshots of all the transactions. They took $38,750 over 3 months. Jade, sitting beside me, spoke up. And they're not even sorry. They're acting like Michelle's the bad guy for being upset about it. Nigel's expression darkened. This is a clear case of financial fraud, regardless of family ties. However, he paused, looking at me carefully. Are you prepared for what pursuing legal action against your family might mean? What do you mean? Family court cases can get ugly, very ugly, especially when money's involved. Your relatives might say things, do things that can't be taken back. Are you ready for that? I thought about my mother's dismissive tone, my father's assumption that my hard work meant less than Regina's dreams, and my aunt's entitled silence through it all. They already crossed a line that can't be uncrossed, I said firmly. I want my money back. Nigel nodded, pulling out some forms. Then let's begin. We'll start with... My phone buzzed. Regina's name flashed on the screen. "Take it," Nigel said. "It might be relevant." I answered, putting it on speaker. "Regina?" "Michelle, please." Her voice cracked. "I heard you're meeting with a lawyer. You can't do this to me, to us. I'm about to start my second semester, and if you make Mom return the money, I'll have to drop out." "That's not my problem, Regina. You should have thought about that before accepting stolen money." "I didn't know," she protested. "Mom and Aunt said you agreed to help. I only found out the truth yesterday when everything blew up." I looked at Nigel, who was taking notes. "Whether you knew or not doesn't change anything. That money was my safety net." "But I'm so close to my dreams." Regina's voice turned desperate. "Just give me a chance to finish this semester. I'll work part-time, take loans, anything. Please don't ruin this for me." Jade grabbed my hand as I closed my eyes. "Regina, I'm sorry, but I can't trust any promises right now. You need to talk to your mom about this." "Mom's crying. She says you're destroying the family over money. Is that what you want?" Nigel cleared his throat, signaling me to wrap it up. "What I want is my money back," I said firmly. "What happens after that is up to your mom. Goodbye, Regina." I hung up, my hands shaking. Jade immediately pulled me into a hug. "You did great," she whispered. Nigel finished his notes and looked up. "That call actually helps our case. Your cousin essentially admitted the money was taken without your knowledge. Now, let's discuss our strategy." For the next hour, we went through the legal process. Nigel explained how we'd first send a formal demand letter, giving them a chance to return the money before filing a civil suit. "What if they refuse?" I asked. "Then we go to court. With the evidence we have, the unauthorized transfers, their admissions, and your documented history of saving this money, we have a strong case." As we wrapped up the meeting, my phone buzzed again. A text from Kelvin. "Just talk to Regina. She's a mess. But I get why you're doing this. Can we meet? I think there's more to this story than anyone's telling." I showed the message to Nigel. "Meet him," he advised. "Information is power. Just don't make any promises or agreements without consulting me first." Outside the office, Jade hugged me again. "Want me to come with you to meet Kelvin?" I shook my head. "I need to do this part alone. But thank you for everything." "That's what best friends are for," she smiled. "Keep me posted." As I watched her drive away, I texted Kelvin back. "Coffee shop on 5th Street, 1 hour." The war for my emergency fund was officially beginning, and I needed all the allies I could get. The coffee shop was busy when I arrived, but I spotted Kelvin immediately in our usual corner booth. He looked tired, his usually neat hair disheveled, and he was nervously shredding a paper napkin. "You look about as good as I feel," I said, sliding into the seat across from him. "Yeah, well, it's been a rough couple of days." He pushed a coffee toward me. "Already ordered your usual." I wrapped my hands around the warm cup. "So, what's this other story I need to hear?" Kelvin glanced around before leaning forward. "It's worse than you think, Michelle. Aunt Elizabeth isn't just using your money for Regina's tuition. She's been running a whole scheme." "What do you mean?" "Remember how she always bragged about Regina getting that full scholarship? There was no scholarship. She's been taking money from different family members, playing them against each other, making up stories about emergency needs." My stomach dropped. "How do you know this?" "Because she tried it with me first," he admitted, looking ashamed. 3 months ago, she came to me asking for money for Regina's special program fees. When I said I couldn't afford it, she started guilt-tripping me about family loyalty. That's when I started digging." The bell above the coffee shop door chimed, and we both jumped. It was just another customer, but Kelvin's paranoia was starting to make sense. "How many others?" I asked. "At least 3 cousins and Uncle Rob. Each thinks they're the only one helping. Each got a different story." He pulled out his phone and showed me a series of messages. "Look at these texts from Aunt Elizabeth to our cousin Sarah. She told her Regina needed money for medical bills." I scrolled through the messages, my anger building. "Does Regina know about all this?" "I don't think so, not everything, but—" He hesitated. "But what?" "She's not as innocent as she pretends. I overheard her and Aunt Elizabeth arguing last week. Regina was demanding more money for some spring break trip, saying she deserved it after playing her part so well. The coffee in my stomach turned sour. Playing her part? Those tears on the phone earlier? The desperate college student act? She's been doing that with everyone Aunt Elizabeth scams. I pushed my coffee away, feeling sick. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I was gathering evidence, he said, pulling out a USB drive. Bank statements, text messages, recordings of conversations. I was planning to confront Aunt Elizabeth myself, but then this happened with your money, and... He slid the drive across the table. I think your lawyer could use this. The bell chimed again. This time, Regina walked in. She froze when she saw us, then straightened her shoulders and marched over. Having a nice family meeting without me? She asked, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Sit down, Regina, I said coldly. We need to talk about your acting career. Her face paled slightly, but she sat. I don't know what you mean. Cut the act, Kelvin snapped. We know about the fake scholarship, the multiple stories, the spring break demands, all of it. Regina's facade cracked. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. Mom's been planning my whole life since I was born. The right school, the right program, the right connections. Do you know what it's like to have your entire future mapped out by someone else? So you decided to help her steal from your family? I asked. I didn't steal anything. I just played along, made things easier. Mom said everyone was happy to help, that it was all arranged. Happy to help? I pulled up my bank statement. Does this look arranged to you? They drained my emergency fund without even asking. Regina's eyes widened at the numbers. I didn't know it was that much. Mom said it was just a few thousand from each person. Well, she lied, Kelvin said, just like she lied about everything else. Regina's lower lip trembled, but this time I could see the calculation behind it. What are you going to do? I'm going to get my money back, I said firmly. And now, thanks to Kelvin, I can help everyone else get their money back too. You'll destroy Mom, Regina whispered. No, Regina. Your mom destroyed herself when she decided to steal from her family. Regina stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I won't help you hurt her. I can't. As she stormed out, Kelvin turned to me. What now? I picked up the USB drive. Now we take this to Nigel, and then we call a family meeting. All the cousins, Uncle Rob, everyone. It's time they knew the truth. It's going to get ugly, he warned. It already is ugly, I said, standing up. But at least now we can fight back with the truth. Nigel's office was crowded with family members 2 days later. Uncle Rob paced by the window, while our cousins Sarah and Marcus sat rigidly on the small couch. Kelvin stood beside me, his presence reassuring as we waited for Nigel to finish reviewing the evidence. This is extensive, Nigel said, looking up from his computer. The systematic nature of these deceptions changes everything. What do you mean? Sarah asked, her voice small. It means this isn't just about Michelle's emergency fund anymore, Nigel explained. We're looking at a pattern of deliberate financial fraud targeting multiple family members. Uncle Rob stopped pacing. I gave her $12,000. She said Regina needed emergency dental surgery. She told me it was for special academic counseling, Marcus added. Another $8,000. And I gave her $15,000 for supposed medical bills, Sarah whispered. I took out a personal loan for that. Nigel typed rapidly on his keyboard. That brings the total to over $73,000, not including Michelle's $38,000. The room fell silent as the number sank in. Over $100,000, stolen from family through elaborate lies. I can't believe Regina was part of this, Sarah said, shaking her head. She seemed so genuine when she called to thank me. She's a better actress than we thought, Kelvin replied bitterly. The crying, the gratitude, the promises to pay it back, all rehearsed. My phone buzzed. A message from my mother. Why are you doing this to your aunt? To Regina? We raised you better than this. I showed the message to Kelvin, who snorted. Yeah, they raised us to be honest, except when they're the ones lying. Nigel cleared his throat. I've prepared individual civil suits for each of you, but I recommend we present them as a united case. It strengthens our position. What about criminal charges? Uncle Rob asked. That's an option, but it would mean involving the police. Are you all prepared for that possibility? Before anyone could answer, the office door burst open. Aunt Elizabeth stood there, Regina hovering behind her. So, this is your little conspiracy meeting? Aunt Elizabeth's voice was sharp. Turning my own family against me? You did that yourself. I stood up, facing her. When you decided to steal from all of us. Steal? I borrowed money for my daughter's future, for your cousin's education. Then why lie? Sarah demanded, finding her voice. Why make up different stories for each of us? Regina stepped forward. Mom, what is she talking about? Don't act innocent now, Kelvin snapped. We have proof you were in on it. Regina, Nigel intervened calmly. Would you like to see the evidence? The multiple stories, the different amounts, your recorded conversations about playing your part? Regina's face crumpled. Mom, you said everyone knew. You said they all agreed. Of course they agreed, Aunt Elizabeth shouted. They just didn't know they were agreeing. But it was for you, baby. Everything was for you. I never wanted this, Regina whispered. Not like this. Nigel stood up. Mrs. Diaz, I suggest you leave now and contact your own lawyer. We'll be filing our suits this afternoon. You wouldn't dare, Aunt Elizabeth hissed. We're family. Family doesn't steal from family, I quoted my mother's words back at her. Isn't that what you always taught us? Regina suddenly turned to her mother. How much? How much did you take from everyone? It doesn't matter. Over $100,000, Marcus cut in. That's how much your mother stole from us. Regina staggered back like she'd been slapped. 100,000. Mom, what have you done? What I had to do. Aunt Elizabeth grabbed Regina's arm. Come on, we're leaving. These people clearly don't understand family loyalty. But Regina pulled away. No, I'm not going anywhere with you. She turned to Nigel. I want to make a statement about everything I know. Regina, Aunt Elizabeth's voice cracked. You can't. I can, and I will. Regina's voice was steady for the first time. I'm tired of the lies, Mom. Tired of being your excuse. As Aunt Elizabeth fled the office, Regina sat down heavily in an empty chair. I'll tell you everything. How she planned it, who else she targeted, all of it. Nigel pulled out a fresh legal pad. Start from the beginning. I looked around the room, at Sarah wiping away tears, at Marcus staring at his hands, at Uncle Rob finally sitting down, exhausted, at Kelvin standing strong beside me, at Regina preparing to confess everything. This wasn't how family was supposed to be. But maybe, through all this pain and betrayal, we could build something stronger, something honest. Okay, Regina took a deep breath. It started 2 years ago, when Mom first found out about the college program. The courthouse mediation room felt too small for the tension it contained. I sat between Kelvin and Jade, facing Aunt Elizabeth and her lawyer across the table. Regina had chosen to sit at the end, belonging to neither side anymore. Before we begin, the mediator said, I want to remind everyone that this is an attempt to resolve this matter without going to trial. Mrs. Diaz has requested this meeting to propose a settlement. Aunt Elizabeth's lawyer, a sharp-faced woman named Ms. Peters, cleared her throat. My client is prepared to offer a payment plan to resolve this unfortunate misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? Jade muttered under her breath. I squeezed her hand to keep her quiet. We propose monthly payments of $500 to each affected party, Ms. Peters continued, until the full amount is repaid. Nigel leaned forward. At that rate, it would take over 16 years to repay the full amount. That's not acceptable. It's what I can afford. Aunt Elizabeth spoke for the first time, her voice trembling. I've already taken out a second mortgage on my house. What about the money you took? I asked. Where did it all go? Regina shifted uncomfortably. The college program only cost about $40,000. The rest went to maintaining appearances. Aunt Elizabeth cut in. Regina needed to look the part, to fit in with her wealthy classmates. The right clothes, the right car, the right apartment. So you stole from your family to keep up with the Joneses? Kelvin's voice was ice cold. That's your excuse? You don't understand the pressure? No, you don't understand. I slammed my hand on the table, making everyone jump. That money wasn't yours to take. My emergency fund was for actual emergencies. Sarah took out a personal loan to help you. Uncle Rob delayed his retirement. Also, Regina could have designer clothes? Regina started crying. I never knew. Mom kept saying everything was handled, that everyone was happy to help. I should have asked more questions. Yes, you should have, Jade said quietly. But you didn't want to know the truth, did you? The mediator raised her hand. Let's focus on the settlement proposal. Mrs. Diaz, do you have any other assets that could be liquidated to increase the monthly payments? Aunt Elizabeth looked at her lawyer, who nodded slightly. I have some jewelry and investments. The jewelry and investments combined are worth approximately $60,000, Ms. Peters added. Nigel consulted his notes. That would still leave over $40,000 to be repaid. I'll get a job, Regina suddenly said. A real one, not the part-time thing Mom wanted me to do for appearances. I can contribute to the payments. You don't have to, Aunt Elizabeth started. Yes, I do. Regina stood up. I benefited from this money, even if I didn't know it was stolen. I need to help make it right. The mediator nodded approvingly. That could work. If Mrs. Diaz liquidates her assets immediately and combines that with higher monthly payments from both herself and Regina, we could be repaid within 3 years, Nigel calculated, with appropriate interest. And legal fees, I added firmly. Ms. Peters whispered something to Aunt Elizabeth, who nodded tearfully. We accept these terms. I'll start liquidating everything tomorrow. There's one more condition, I said, looking directly at my aunt. You need to tell everyone the truth, not just those of us in this room, but the entire family. No more lies, no more manipulation. Michelle. No, I cut her off. That's non-negotiable. Either you come clean to everyone or we go to trial. Your choice. The room fell silent. Regina reached over and touched her mother's hand. Mom, please. We need to stop living this lie. Aunt Elizabeth seemed to deflate. Fine. I'll tell everyone everything. The next hour was spent drafting the formal agreement. As we prepared to leave, Regina caught my arm. I know it doesn't mean much now, she said, but I'm sorry. For everything. For not asking questions. For playing along. For letting this happen. I looked at her. Really looked at her. The designer clothes suddenly seemed like a costume, the expensive jewelry like chains. What will you do now? I asked. Transfer to a state school. Get a real job. Start living in the real world instead of Mom's fantasy. She managed a weak smile. Maybe become the person I want to be instead of the person she wanted me to be. As we left the courthouse, Jade linked her arm through mine. You okay? I watched Aunt Elizabeth and Regina walking to their car, no longer the proud, polished pair they'd once been. I think I will be. At least now everyone knows the truth. Truth has a way of setting things right, Kelvin said, joining us. Even if it hurts like hell getting there. My phone buzzed. A message from my mother. I heard what happened at mediation. Can we talk? I showed the message to Kelvin and Jade. One battle at a time, Jade advised. I nodded, putting my phone away. The war wasn't over, but at least now we were fighting with the truth on our side. The family gathering at Uncle Rob's house felt more like a trial than a confession. Everyone was there, cousins, aunts, uncles, even distant relatives who'd heard whispers of the scandal. Aunt Elizabeth stood in the center of the living room, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. I've asked you all here because I need to tell you something, she began, her voice shaking. I've done something terrible. As she spoke, laying out her web of lies and manipulation, the reactions around the room shifted from confusion to shock to anger. My mother sat rigid beside my father, her face growing paler with each revelation. You told me Regina needed money for medical treatments, Uncle Rob's wife said, standing up. We emptied our vacation fund for that. And you told us it was for special academic programs, another cousin chimed in. We trusted you. Regina, sitting in the corner, kept her head down as the accusations flew. She'd changed in the week since the mediation. Gone were the designer clothes and perfectly styled hair. She looked more real somehow, in her simple jeans and t-shirt. There's more, I said, stepping forward. Mom, Dad, you need to explain your part in this. My mother's head snapped up. Michelle, please! No, my father interrupted, surprising everyone. She's right. We need to come clean too. He stood up, addressing the room. We helped Elizabeth access Michelle's emergency fund. We gave her the passwords, helped her hide the transfers. The room erupted again. Kelvin moved to stand beside me as our parents faced the family's judgment. How could you do that to your own daughter? Aunt Patricia demanded. We thought we were helping family, my mother said weakly. Elizabeth said Michelle had agreed. But you never asked me, I cut in. You never even mentioned it to me. Because we knew you'd say no, my mother burst out. You've always been so rigid about money, so unwilling to help family in need. Regina suddenly stood up. That's not true. Michelle helped me with my college applications. She spent hours tutoring me for my SATs. She helped because I asked her directly, honestly. Regina, Aunt Elizabeth warned. No, Mom, I'm done hiding. Regina moved to the center of the room. I need to confess, too. I knew some of what was happening. I played along, pretended to be desperate when Mom needed to convince people to give money. I'm not proud of it, but I did it. The silence that followed was deafening. So, what happens now? Someone asked. Nigel, who'd been quietly observing from the doorway, stepped forward. Mrs. Diaz has agreed to repay everyone through asset liquidation and a payment plan. Regina will also contribute to the repayment. And the legal charges? Uncle Rob asked. We've agreed to handle this civilly, provided all terms are met, I explained, including full transparency about everything that happened. My mother stood up suddenly. I need to say something too. She turned to face me, tears in her eyes. Michelle, I betrayed your trust. I convinced myself it was okay because you're my daughter, because family helps family. But what we did, it was wrong. I'm so sorry. I wanted to stay angry, to hold on to my hurt, but seeing her there, finally acknowledging her mistake, cracked something in my chest. I trusted you, I said quietly. Both of you. That's what hurts the most. We know, my father said, moving to stand beside my mother. We'd like to make it right. We've decided to sell our vacation property to help repay your emergency fund. Aunt Elizabeth's head snapped up. The lake house? But that's been in the family for generations. And family helps family, my father said firmly, using her own words against her. The right way this time. Regina walked over to me. I start my new job tomorrow. It's just waiting tables, but it's honest work, and I've enrolled in community college for next semester. Good for you, I said, meaning it. The rest of the evening was a blur of tears, accusations, and eventually, tentative steps toward reconciliation. As family members began to leave, each stopping to hug me or whisper apologies, Kelvin nudged my shoulder. Look, he said, pointing to where Regina and my mother were talking quietly in the corner. Think they'll be okay? Eventually, I said, once they learn to live in reality instead of fantasy. Jade, who'd been my silent support throughout the evening, squeezed my hand. You did it. You stood up for yourself and made them face the truth. We did it, I corrected her, including Kelvin in my glance. I couldn't have done this alone. As we left Uncle Rob's house, I felt lighter somehow. The money wasn't all back yet, the trust wasn't fully rebuilt, but at least now everything was in the open. Sometimes I realized that's where healing has to start. 3 months after the family confession, I sat in Nigel's office reviewing the repayment progress. The first wave of restitution had come through. Proceeds from Aunt Elizabeth's jewelry sales and my parents' lake house. The numbers are looking good, Nigel said, sliding a document across his desk. Your emergency fund is almost halfway restored. I scanned the figures, noting the regular deposits from both Regina and Aunt Elizabeth's wages. True to her word, Regina had taken a job waiting tables and was working double shifts to contribute more. Have you heard from your parents lately? Nigel asked, closing his laptop. They come over for dinner once a week now. It's different, better in some ways, harder in others. I traced the edge of the paper. At least they're trying. A knock at the door interrupted us. Jade poked her head in. Sorry I'm late. Traffic was awful. Perfect timing, Nigel said. We were just discussing the latest developments, including this. He pulled out another document. Aunt Elizabeth is requesting a meeting. My stomach tightened. Why? She says she has something important to tell everyone. She wants all affected family members present. The last family meeting went so well, I muttered, but nodded. When? Tomorrow afternoon. I've already contacted everyone else. The next day, I arrived at Nigel's office to find it even more crowded than before. Uncle Rob and his wife sat near the window, while Sarah and Marcus took their usual spots on the couch. My parents stood awkwardly near the door, and Regina sat alone in a corner, wearing her waitress uniform. She'd come straight from her shift. Aunt Elizabeth entered last, looking years older than she had just months ago. She carried a large envelope. "Thank you all for coming," she said, her voice rough. "I've sold my house." The room went silent. "What?" Regina stood up. "Mom, where will you live?" "I'm moving into a small apartment. The house sale will cover most of the remaining restitution." She opened the envelope and handed papers to Nigel. "The closing is next week." My mother stepped forward. "Elizabeth, you don't have to—" "Yes, I do," Aunt Elizabeth cut her off. "I've spent my whole life pretending to be something I'm not, pushing Regina to live up to impossible standards and hurting the people who truly cared about me. It's time to face reality." Regina moved to her mother's side. "I'll help with the apartment rent. Between my waitressing jobs and the barista position I just got, we can make it work." "You should focus on your studies," Aunt Elizabeth protested. "I am. Community college is affordable, and I'm learning more there than I ever did trying to keep up appearances at that expensive university." Nigel reviewed the house sale documents. With this, everyone could be repaid within the month, rather than over 3 years. "That's what I want," Aunt Elizabeth said firmly. "A clean slate. No more debts, no more lies." Uncle Rob cleared his throat. "What about your retirement?" "I'll keep working. Maybe it's time I learned the value of honest work, like my daughter has." I watched Regina squeeze her mother's hand, saw the genuine pride in Aunt Elizabeth's eyes as she looked at her daughter in her simple work uniform. Something had shifted between them. Something real had replaced the shallow perfection they'd once pursued. "There's one more thing." Aunt Elizabeth turned to me. "Michelle, I owe you the biggest apology. I took advantage of your parents' trust in me, manipulated them into betraying you. I was so focused on maintaining appearances that I destroyed the real relationships in my life." "We all owed Michelle an apology," my father added. "And a debt that goes beyond money." I felt Jade's hand on my shoulder, steadying me as always. "The money was important," I said carefully, "but the trust was worth more. That's what really needed to be repaid." "And has it?" Aunt Elizabeth asked softly. "Even a little?" I looked around the room, at Regina working honest jobs to make amends, at my parents trying to rebuild our relationship one dinner at a time, at Aunt Elizabeth selling her precious house to make things right. "It's getting there," I said, "day by day." Nigel spent the next hour processing the house sale paperwork. As everyone prepared to leave, Regina caught up with me. "I'm serving at the diner on 5th Street now," she said. "If you ever want coffee, real coffee, not the overpriced stuff I used to insist on, stop by." I smiled. I might do that. Outside, Jade linked arms with me. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said, watching my family members disperse. All of them changed, all of them a little more real than they'd been 3 months ago. "I think we all are." Sometimes I realized it takes losing everything to find out what really matters. And sometimes what you rebuild is stronger than what you lost. The last check from the house sale cleared on a sunny Tuesday morning. I stared at my restored emergency fund balance, feeling a complex mix of emotions I couldn't quite name. "Want company for your coffee run?" Jade asked from my apartment doorway. She knew exactly where I was heading. Regina's diner had become a regular stop in my routine, though I hadn't planned it that way. The bell chimed as we entered, and Regina looked up from wiping down a table. "The usual?" she called out, already reaching for coffee cups. "Actually," I said, "can we talk for a minute?" She nodded, gesturing to an empty booth. "My break's in 5 minutes." While we waited, Jade squeezed my hand. "You sure about this?" "It feels right," I said, pulling an envelope from my purse. Regina joined us, sliding into the booth and untying her apron. Everything okay? Mom made her final payment yesterday, right? She did. I pushed the envelope across the table. That's why I wanted to talk to you. Regina opened it carefully, her eyes widening as she read the contents. This is a check for $15,000. I don't understand. It's for your education, I said. A proper loan this time, with terms and conditions all spelled out. Jade helped me draw up the paperwork. But why? Regina's voice cracked. After everything? Because you proved something to me these past few months. Working double shifts, living honestly, owning up to your mistakes. You've changed. We all have, she whispered, touching the check gently. The loan has real terms, Jade added, pulling out a document. Regular payments, reasonable interest, everything in writing. No shortcuts, no manipulation. Regina straightened her shoulders. I'll pay back every penny, the right way this time. I know you will, I said. That's why I'm offering it. The diner's door chimed again. Aunt Elizabeth walked in, looking different in her new waitress uniform from the budget restaurant where she'd found work. Mom, Regina called out, look what Michelle's offering. Aunt Elizabeth approached our booth cautiously. When Regina showed her the check and paperwork, she started to cry. After everything we did, she began. That's exactly why, I cut in. Because you both showed me that people can change. Real change, not just promises. We have family dinner at my new apartment this Sunday, Aunt Elizabeth said hesitantly. Would you come? Both of you? She added, including Jade. I glanced at Jade, who nodded slightly. We'll be there. It's not fancy, Regina added quickly. Just home-cooked food and honest conversation. Mom's learning to make lasagna. Learning is a generous word, Aunt Elizabeth laughed, wiping her eyes. But I'm trying. That's all any of us can do, I said, standing up. Try to be better than we were yesterday. As we prepared to leave, Regina hugged me tightly. Thank you, not just for the loan, but for showing me what real strength looks like. Outside, Jade looped her arm through mine. You know what the best revenge is? Living well? No, she grinned. Watching the people who hurt you become better people because of the boundaries you set. My phone buzzed. A message from Kelvin. Mom's asking if you're still coming to dinner tonight. She's finally going to teach us her secret recipe. I smiled, showing Jade the message. My relationship with my parents was still healing, but like Regina's lasagna, we were learning, one honest conversation at a time. You know, I said, when I first discovered the theft, I thought my family was destroyed forever. I never imagined we'd end up here. Here being? In a better place than where we started, more honest, more real. We reached my car, but I paused before getting in. Through the diner window, I could see Regina showing Aunt Elizabeth the loan paperwork, both of them smiling through tears. In a few hours, I'd be in my parents' kitchen, learning family recipes and building new trust. On Sunday, we'd crowd into Aunt Elizabeth's small apartment, eating imperfect lasagna and sharing honest conversations. My emergency fund was finally restored, but I'd gained something worth far more, a family that had learned the hard way that love without honesty isn't really love at all. Ready to go? Jade asked. Yeah, I said, starting the car. I'm ready for whatever comes next. Because that's the thing about family. Sometimes it has to break completely before it can be rebuilt into something stronger, something true. And sometimes the deepest wounds, when healed properly, leave us with the greatest strength. I pulled away from the curb, leaving the diner behind, but carrying its lessons forward. The future wasn't certain, but at least now it was real. And that made all the difference.